Celtic Ligers. Celtic Ligers. Celtic Ligers. Celtic Ligers.
Hello and welcome to Celtic Ligers. This is Gareth Lyons.
Yeah.
We don't even really do an intro. Sometimes we just start, you know?
Yeah.
But we're joined today by Vancouver comedian John Cullen.
Hey, thanks guys for having me. Thank you also for pronouncing the name of your show off the top, because I am a very stupid North American man and I wasn't sure if we were going to go with Celtic or Celtic. So, you know, I'm glad you guys took that bullet for me, so now I know that it's Celtic, and because I feel like your listeners might get pissed at me if I was like, hey, thanks for having me on Celtic Ligers, and they'd be like, well, look at this idiot piece of shit.
Wouldn't be like not funny in like
if you got like a death threat from
somebody just goes, what the hell?
Nice. Yeah, no, that's good. I like it. I will say that if I was going to get a death threat, I would prefer it to be from a listener of your podcast. Ireland is pretty
funny.
It's pretty far away from me, you know? So like if I get a death threat from inside North America, I'm probably a little more concerned. But right now I'm like, how bad does this guy want to kill me that he's going to he's going to get on a plane, and I'm on the opposite side of North America. So I mean, this isn't even, you know, you'd have to land in Toronto or New York or something and then fly to, like, you got to really want to kill me. So
if he did do it, then you just have to give it to him.
I would respect it. I would respect it for sure. Absolutely. You have no choice, especially right now. No one's flying. Like, he's risking his own life, getting COVID on the plane or whatever, to come and kill me because I mispronounced a word on your podcast. I would have no choice but I would salute while he killed me. I'd be like, you know,
just imagine like a few months from now, like Revenant style, somebody just crawling out of the forest, you know, or whatever in British Columbia, just being like, there he is, you know what I mean? Like, you've forgotten entirely. It's like, I was on that podcast? Yes, you know. So, Vancouver comedian. I've written up notes here, which is not something I normally do.
Thank you,
and
I appreciate
I did
that.
I knew about Blocked Party, and, you know, I'd been listening to your stand-up, your first stand-up album, Most Likely to Be a Comedian, on Spotify.
Whoa, and that was smooth. Nicely done.
But then, I was so pissed off to discover yesterday, before I could listen to enough of it to talk to you about it, that you had the P.O.Dcast with Brian Quimby about nu metal. Like, I had somehow missed that one entirely. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, dipping into that one.
It's a blast. It's such a fun show.
You got such an eclectic resume, you know. I don't want to be like all gushing over it, but it was something. James is nodding like, well, you are, you know what I mean? So, but Block Party with Stefan Heck, the P.O.Dcast with Brian Quimby, and also you're a competitive curler.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I retired like a year ago, but I used to curl pretty competitively. It's funny because Ireland sort of misses the mark on the curling, like,
really?
you know, because there just isn't. So like England very famously, there's not really very many curlers in England anymore, but they very famously won the gold medal at the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake City, Rona Martin. And then Scotland is like one of the best that's where curling was invented, and it's like one of the best curling nations on the planet still. Ireland, just nothing. We haven't really seen any Irish curlers, you know.
We're too proud to hold a brush. You know what I mean?
I always think it's because curling is too close to hurling.
Yeah,
we'd get so confused, you know. You'd be like, "No, because someone would be like, I'm a curler." They'd be like, "Hurler? No, curler."
And like, you'd be on your way, and someone would switch the signs, you know.
Yeah.
They'd be like, I thought I was going to the hurling match, but actually I'm at the
this
curling.
Real Wile E. Coyote situation. It was like, just
I brought my heavy
club
item.
Yeah.
What's the thing called?
I thought you were talking about hurling.
No, I was talking, this is more.
This is exactly what you warned us of. I was literally 10 seconds ago, you know.
In curling, it is it's called a stone or a rock.
Okay.
That's handy.
Yeah, it is. I was confused too, because I was like, does he not know the name for the hurling thing? I feel like that's like the whole, that's the Irish thing. I feel like if you don't know that, they kick you out or some shit.
No, I actually don't know what it's called either, if I'm honest.
I think it's called a hurling
called
stick or
Is
something.
it called a hurl?
A hurl. It's called a hurl. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. Like that's what someone who did it, like that's what I would call it. I'd be like, you know, you got your hurl thing,
Yeah.
whatever, and they'd be like, yeah,
But
that's
what would
it's
you
called.
call the ball?
Well, I know what the ball is called.
I'm not talking to you guys. I'm clearly talking to the Canadian guy.
What would you call the ball?
Oh, what would I call the ball? Fuck, that's a good question.
I love how eager I,
mean,
was
the-
to be like, I know that. I was like, yeah, of course you fucking know that.
I mean the ball. Did they just call it the ball?
No way.
Uh,
Not even close.
Okay, let's see. They don't call it the ball. Is it like some sort of like Gaelic word that I would never guess?
I want
Yeah,
to
I
say
guess it is. Now,
it is, yeah.
Now that you
but
say it, I actually never thought where it came from. Garrett, tell him.
it's called a schlitter, isn't it?
You know.
Like a schlitter? It's called a
Yeah.
schlitter anyway. It's called a fucking, what's the one, Harry Potter?
I don't know.
Oh, like the snitch.
Thank you. It's called snitch.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Cool. The
Oh, yeah.
schlitter.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm surprised the sticks aren't called shillelaghs. Like they kind of look like a
That'd be
shillelagh
cool.
in a way too.
Wouldn't it?
I was just gonna say that I think it's cool that Ireland has like a stadium for the sports that only you play. Like I'm a
Yes,
big like I
totally.
love looking shit up, and I love like I you know, and I love that it's Croke Park, right? Or is that right?
Yeah.
And how you have that place, and it's just for like hurling and Gaelic football,
Yeah.
two sports that like no one else on earth plays. I have a huge
Yeah.
amount of respect for that. That you're just like,
Yeah,
we have an
totally.
80,000 seat stadium, but it's only for these things. Like that's cool
Yeah.
as hell.
And it used to be, they were going to play rugby in it. I think they do.
I think they do
There
now.
was like a massive controversy.
but it was a huge controversy.
Oh,
yeah.
They were
really?
almost like,
Yeah.
we'd rather burn it down than let you play rugby on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you
That's
might,
awesome.
I don't know in Canada, but the relationship between Canadians and like the UK, well, you know,
No,
like,
it's like Canada to America is like us to England.
probably, yeah. But like the idea of like, let's say if it was like a sport, like, oh, we're gonna play like, curling there, people would be like, oh yeah, whatever. But well, not I mean curling, Scotland. I don't think there's that much, you know. But anyway, whatever. There's not animosity between
How would they play
Scotland.
curling in Croke Park?
I'm just saying. Imagine that there's a sport which is
Right.
kind of not like associated with England, and it would be a lot easier for people to imagine it being
Yeah.
played at Croke Park,
That would be it.
like
Right.
Pogs or something. You
Yeah.
know, they're just there doing whatever, however you play Pogs. You know,
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the problem for us, and I think what makes Ireland and England's relationship unique is that you're separated by water. So there is this kind of physical demarcation that I think makes a difference. Like Canada bordering the US, I think we don't like, yes, we don't like America, especially right now, but like it's not quite the hatred in the sense of, well, and also of course, like, I mean, you guys have all the history and the splitting of
Yeah.
from the United Kingdom and
all
stuff
that
like
shit.
all that shit, you know? So it's like, yeah, if Canada was part of America and then we fought for our independence from America, then maybe we would like hate America much more. But I think it's just like
Yeah.
we share a border, we share so much culture that I don't know that we would have something like that, at least not sporting wise, because like because the closest thing I was thinking of would be like American football, but we have the Canadian Football League and like all of our universities and colleges play it and stuff, so it's not like we don't really have, as at least as far as like a sporting relationship goes, I wouldn't say there's not really like an American sport where we're like, fuck that, aside from like NASCAR. I guess I would say like that's pretty low down on the like Canadian totem pole, but
Yeah, like imagine if someone drove a NASCAR to Canada and you shot out the wheels.
I mean, that would be sweet.
Yeah.
Just thought it was funny because in Ireland, like I distinctly remember, I would have been about 11 or 12, and
Yeah.
in fifth or fourth class, our teacher's like, now you get to put on a CD of the songs that you're listening to, and they literally put on like Limp Bizkit, but he had recorded it and he had turned it down at every swear word, you know, except he missed one of them. But she was like, everyone went, and then the teacher had been grading, looked up, was like, is there something I should have heard there? It was like, no, you know. But it's so strange that like, yeah, and Linkin Park was massive. Like we like, this is again another, not the same teacher but a different one, said, what song do you want to learn? So, you know, be learning like all those kind of like really lame songs that teachers
What,
make you
to
learn.
sing?
to sing. You know, where you're just like, oh, it's, you know, oh, I want a free moment to do some work, so I guess the kids can sing, like, you know, Coward of the County was one of them, or like All God's Creatures Have a Place in the Choir was the name of a song. But the one,
Yeah, just like Linkin Park.
then yeah, exactly. And then she was like, what one do you want to sing? And they were like, In the End. And so all these like 11, 12-year-olds singing In the End, you know.
Mhm.
And it's like, you know, it doesn't matter how hard you try, you know. And yeah, so, but I wasn't a fan at the time. I'm kind of not really a fan now, I'll be honest. But it was very funny that, like, not only did I not want to sing the songs that our teacher was assigning, I didn't want to sing the songs that my peers were saying as well. So you just be there going like, I gotta sing In the End now.
What did you want to sing? You want to sing?
I want to
like-
sing Gorillaz, man. That was my main jam. I was all about
Oh,
Gorillaz.
okay.
Yeah. But they were too dour
Nice.
for, you know. I don't know why that was too dour and In the End wasn't, but whatever, you know.
I'm just imagining a kid, like a class singing Gorillaz too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that was unfortunately before that one. There was a lot of bangers on Demon Days, but
Right,
the original
yeah.
one was super dour. I'd always thought that with the first.
Yeah, I guess that's
Gorillaz-
true. There was like I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'm feeling
Exactly.
sad. I got sunshine.
Yeah.
In a bed. Yeah, that would be one for sure. Imagining like school children singing that
Exactly.
would add like an additional level of dourness
would
to
be
it. I
so
feel
super creepy. There was like
very solemn.
But like, yeah, that was like, because the original album was kind of like, hey, what if we were like a manufactured boy band or a pop band? So they kind of left a consistency to it. And then once they got to the second album, it's like, fuck it. This is a vanity project where we just do like play with the people we really like. And I like all versions of it, but like there's a clear delineation between Gorillaz album 1 and then the rest of their output, you know? The song machine that they're doing now is unreal. If anybody, I'm gonna stop talking about Gorillaz, but I love Gorillaz. I really do.
I mean, that was definitely a cool. It felt very 90s, but also like very progressive at the same time. Canada, we had our own cartoon band. They were called Prozac. And
No way, I'm googling that. Sorry.
yeah, it's
What
like
were they like?
terrible. Yeah, it was Prozzak, and
Yes.
and they were like their big hit was like Sucks to Be You, and they were like a cartoon band. So there was like one kind of like smaller guy and one bigger guy. The bigger guy was kind of like blonde. He looked like Johnny Bravo a little bit. And then their big hit was like it was kind of that like mid to late 90s sort of like shitty like electro kind of. And the big song and the chorus was like Sucks to Be You. I know. They sang with an English accent for some reason, even though they were Canadian.
Was there any kind of?
they were just.
You think there was any reference then to what's that one in South Park? You know, Clarence and
Oh yeah.
What was it?
Terrence and
Terrence
Phillip?
and Philip. Yeah. Do you think there was any kind of like reference to that, or was that just like sheer coincidence?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It could have been. I don't know enough about Prozac to answer that question. I feel like they were just they had a few like pretty big hits. I think there was another one that was called like Love Disease or something. It was like I got a love disease. No, that's not right. Now I'm just singing the Love Machine song. Yeah, I'm like, no, that's it was called Strange Disease, but I do not remember how it goes. But that was like a big hit too. But yeah, that was their whole thing as well. They did the whole Gorillaz thing where they would perform live with like a video screen and you couldn't really see their faces and stuff. And I mean, from an animation standpoint, much less cool than Gorillaz. I'm sure you're looking at it and you're like, well, this is not
completely.
interesting to me, is it?
Really awful.
But yeah, it was pretty good stuff.
That's a funny thing. It's like all the countries in the world just have their own shitty knockoff of
Yeah.
some American product, you know?
Yeah. Well, no, Gorillaz isn't American, you know.
Isn't it?
No, that's from like
No, it's
Britain.
England.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Damon Albarn is
Damon
the
Albarn.
lead singer from
Yeah.
Blur.
Praise be. Love that
Yeah.
guy. I don't know. Praise be. Is the people say that? Is that a
Did
thing?
they say it on?
You can say it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
say it.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you
Yeah.
meant when you said it. It wasn't like I was like, oh,
No,
praise be. What's he talking about?
I'm obsessed. I love Damon Albarn. I've followed like his projects for years, like The
Who
Good,
is
the
he?
Bad, and the Queen, and
Who's he?
he's the lead singer of Blur.
Okay.
But he started it with Jamie Hewlett, who was the guy who created Tank Girl.
What else we're obsessed with?
What?
Canadian guy, eh?
Yeah, sorry. That's something. That was a very natural segue into a thing that I was very eagerly trying to work our way around to. Of the like,
Have you heard of him?
have you heard of Canadian Guy A?
No.
This is like.
Should I have?
No.
This is a deep cut.
Oh, okay.
This is like a deep Canadian cut.
Okay. All right. I like that you guys are bringing me on and showing me the deep Canadian cut that I don't know about.
Now we thought this guy was like your president. Your prime minister. But,
he's the premier of Ontario or something like that. But there was it was Canadian Guy A. Like again, James is right, and I have like a series of very stupid interests and hobbies.
no, they're good.
Okay, well, one of them
They're
includes.
just very specific.
But I love like Crash Bandicoot. So the YouTube algorithm started throwing up like all these people reviewing Crash Bandicoot games. And so this guy came up, Canadian Guy A, and we've talked about him a number of times on the podcast before, but we're just obsessed with his. First of all, of interest to you, John, he has a wall of Funko Pops behind him, just to give you a hint.
Oh, no. Hate that. Don't like that at all. I still have all of mine. I don't know what to do with them. I have like 40 and they're just sitting in the studio. I don't.
Yeah.
Becca tried to sell them on Craigslist. That didn't work out well.
For those not in the know, I believe Stefan Heck noticed that you had a Funko Pop behind you in your background and then commented on it. And then as a result, people just started sending you tons and tons of Funko Pops.
Really?
Yeah, it was like I got one. What happened was I got it for Christmas. It was a gift from my brother-in-law, who was like, he's like a little bit more normie. He's not like an online guy really. And I'm a huge fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the hockey team, and so he had just got it for me for Christmas. And then Stefan was like, oh, so I guess you're a Funko Pop guy now. And then the rest is history. It was both that Stefan was like, oh, so you're a Funko Pop guy now. And then he like kept berating me about it. And then it turned into this thing called the Funko Pop Challenge, which was because then what happened was on our Discord, our chat with our listeners and stuff, people started to like post like bad Funko Pops, being like, oh, I felt like, can you believe they made a Funko of this? Can you believe they made a Funko of that? Whatever. And so then we turned it into the Funko Pop Challenge, where people were competing to see who could send in the worst Funko Pop. And so it's like I don't even have ones that you could consider good. Like they're just so not that any of them are good, but I mean, I don't know how old you guys are. Maybe you guys are in the Funko Pop age range, but
yeah, we're mad for Funko Pops.
Yeah, can't get enough of them. Right?
Yeah,
I know. I didn't know. I was like, oh, maybe these guys. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it was like
pop?
So yeah, like I've got some InSync. I've got some InSync ones. I've got a George Washington one. I've got a Queen Elizabeth one. Princess Diana. Yeah, the Princess Diana one is very strange. I've got a couple like Rick and Morty ones. Just there's just some really there's just some truly terrible shit.
And do you keep them in the box?
Yeah, they're in the box, but I mean, like, they're none of them are worth anything. So it's just like, I know that that's the whole thing, is like, you're not supposed to take them out of the box. But like, I did that. Because when, so we got them all sent to me, and I had them all just sitting in like post boxes in my house. And then we did a video episode where I like unboxed them all, and we would like reveal them on camera. And I purposely like punched a hole in one of the boxes just to like piss someone off who was watching it that might be like a Funko person. Like, no, you got to keep them in the box. It's like, it's the same kind of thing I think that you go through with any kind of like fad collectible, where yes, there are like like Beanie Babies are like a good example of this, where it's like, yes, there are a select few that are worth money, because most of like I had to get way too into this because we talked about it on the show, but most of the ones that are worth money are exactly what you would think. They're like exclusive Funko Pops that were like limited release. They did like a run of 100 and they auctioned them off at like a Comic-Con or something. That be? Like those are the
Would that be like would that be like the Barack Obama inauguration Funko Pop or something?
It's worse. It's not even that good. Like you would think it would be something that makes sense like that. No, like I think one of the most expensive ones is just I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Big Boy. It's like an ad icon. You might only know it because in Honey I Blew Up the Kids, he like blows up he's got like he's basically a child, but he's gigantic and he's wearing like checkerboard overalls and he's,
I believe it's in
got,
Austin
like, slicked hair
Powers,
with
if I'm not mistaken. But
Oh,
that's
okay,
Dr.
yeah, there
Evil's,
you
like,
go.
You know, he gets
Okay.
trapped in a giant big boy.
So that's the most popular.
So that's like one of the most expensive ones because they just did like a limited edition of it for a Comic-Con. Like that's most of them that
Yeah.
you see that are worth money. It'll be like, this was the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive or whatever. So it's just this very stupid thing where people seem to imagine that they're worth money, but they're just like there's just a select few that are worth anything, and then the rest are just they're worthless. So it's just like you have to have so many brainworms to think that like a commercially available product that you can just get at any time would ever be worth any money. Like it's if you bought it at a toy store or you bought it off of an online, like it's not worth anything. Anyone could have got it. You're not special. It just Anyway, I would love to get rid of the ones in my house, but we don't know what to do with
send
them
them
because they're
over
not
here.
even like toys you can give away. They're not.
Do not.
Yeah, you
send
guys
them
want
here.
them? Perfect.
Send him to Garrett's house.
That'll be expensive. I don't know what the shipping is.
Garrett has loads of money. He'll pay for it. Is there a Canadian Guy A Funko Pop?
No, but that's a great segue back to our.
Sorry, sorry. I got you way off track on the Guy A.
No, it's like like James was there, like saying, you know, when you nipped off there, he was like, get a picture of Canadian Guy A and send it to him. And I tried to Google one. I can't really find anyone that really like. He's just a normal YouTuber, like that's it. And he just exclusively talks about like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon.
But his whole vibe is like, I'm Canadian.
But we were talking about
Let me
it.
see. Like, can I just look him up real quick?
Go for
Yeah.
it.
Like, okay, Canadian Guy A. I'm looking him up on YouTube here.
So it's A
And,
as in like,
I'm
Yes,
sure he knows.
Yes, I already figured out that it would be
okay.
A. Like everyone thinks we say A all the time. So he like literally just plays Crash Bandicoot. That's like his whole thing. I'm trying to find a video that has his picture.
Oh yeah, he's got like a cool little animated intro. I gotta admit, I think the animated intro is all right.
Yeah. It's weird though, because the animation is like him, Crash Bandicoot, and
Spyro
then
the Dragon,
Spyro, and then someone from Final Fantasy,
Cloud.
who's
yeah.
never mentioned once.
I've never heard him
mention
mention Final Fantasy, but he insists that he does. But the thing is, like, we had like an episode that was called "Those Guys with the Glasses," where we were referring to. We just got really down a rabbit hole talking about the movie Bob, Canadian Guy A, and there's another, and then basically linking it in with Kevin Smith and that guy, the Nostalgia Critic, you know,
Right.
and just this kind of cadre of like pop culture devotees who just kind of love this detritus and try to
Yeah.
find some sort of like meaning in it.
Just like the human equivalent of Funko Pops.
Yeah, like that is the thing. Like when we were talking about Funko Pops on the show, like that is pretty much their only purpose. Like their purpose is if you work in an office or some place that's public facing, or you have a YouTube show or whatever, like that is the point of owning it. It's like a way of signaling to other people the pop culture that you care about.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like if Janice walks by your desk, she can see your Funko Chewbacca, your Funko, your Funko Austin Matthews. That's the one that got started for us. He's a hockey player for the Maple Leafs. And your Funko Steven Tyler from Aerosmith or whatever. And then Janice can be like, oh, you like Star Wars, hockey, and Aerosmith. It's like that's really the only reason to own them, because
Yeah.
otherwise they're very stupid.
She'd be like, we should go out sometime. You know?
Yeah. Oh, you also like Star Wars video games and
Yeah.
Austin
You
Matthews?
want to talk about
Aerosmith?
Comic-Con 2016, you know?
Yeah. I was there when they released that big boy exclusive.
Yeah.
I didn't get one, but I saw people who did.
But we were talking about that guy, and we were just kind of obsessing, like, what is his relationship with this item? But then the thing about it is, once we got to the end, I was like watching his video again, and I watched the intro, and I've completely forgot about the Canadian thing that he had tacked onto his. He's constantly talking about like Crash Bandicoot and shit like that, but he's like, I'm the Canadian Guy A, Canadian Guy A here. And then he's got like his logo is like a maple leaf wearing glasses.
Yes.
And then his intro
Yes.
is you can hear the Canadian national anthem underneath it in like an 8-bit tone, and I just found that so peculiar, because it also reminded me there was and not to get too
But
broad.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, go on.
Is this like a type of guy in Canada?
Yeah, that's
Like,
basically what I was going to say.
Does this guy mean anything to you?
Yeah.
No. It doesn't mean anything.
Really?
I mean, I think the thing is that Canada is how do I put this? So like this guy using Canadian branding to sell himself as like a Crash Bandicoot expert is very puzzling, because you wouldn't connect, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think, as like you two as Irish guys, like I don't think you would be like, oh, thank God a Canadian is finally
No.
doing this. You know, like it's not, you know, so, but I would say like in Canada, we're very, so Canada is a nation of like 37 million people,
I need to show off now. Right?
of which 15 million or so live in like 5 cities. So it's like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, and maybe you could throw Winnipeg in there. That makes up like over half of the Canadian population. And that and in those cases, those are like fairly, I mean, at least in Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal's case, you know, are fairly like world-class cosmopolitan cities. And then the rest of Canada is very much that kind of like hoser stereotype. So even like within Canada, we have this, there is like a bit of a stratification between like someone like me who lives in Vancouver, and then like fucking Doug who lives up in fucking Moose Jaw, loves to fucking drink his beers and get in the fucking truck and hang out with the boys, you know, fuck. And so like we have a lot of our kind of pop culture is based around the sort of like idea of a small town Canadian. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of the show Letterkenny,
Yeah.
which
We're
is
actually
actually
talking
named
about that
after a
earlier.
town in
Yeah.
Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Letterkenny is like the perfect example. Like a lot of the biggest Canadian media that's gotten huge, like Letterkenny's gotten really big. Trailer Park Boys, of course, is quite big. A lot of that is based on that Canadian stereotype that a lot of Canadians aren't really like. I mean, you guys are talking to me now. I know I have a Canadian accent, but I don't really say and I'm not, you know, we definitely have this stratification of you know, people who are maybe a little bit more cosmopolitan, live in cities, and then people who are kind of farmers and, you know, live a totally different life. And that's what a lot of like Letterkenny and Trailer Park Boys are focused on, is it's like, oh, here's people who live in small town Canada, and this is their life and this is how they live. And I'm imagining it's got to be fairly similar in Ireland.
I was going to
probably
say,
too, right?
because there's a show here that is basically, a lot of people would say is the Irish equivalent of Trailer Park Boys, called The Hardy Bucks. And
Yeah, I think they literally copied.
no, but that's, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, I don't know, that they're this big organization and go, what's popular? Trailer Park Boys? Let's make that. This was like a bunch of guys hanging out in Mayo who just decided,
Yeah.
like, this is a show we like, why don't we just do it here?
They were literally like,
know.
we're unemployed losers.
Yeah,
You know, let's make a show.
Yeah. But like, as with anything that kind of becomes popular, then it just becomes this, especially in Ireland, then it just means like, oh, you just want that again. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of the kind of humor, as I see it in the comedy scene in Ireland, is divided up between like kind of metropolitan, like Dublin stuff that happens there that's like technically more like highbrow.
Yeah,
let's
the
say.
good stuff.
Shut up. And then James is from Dublin, sorry. But the and then the other stuff is about like you know, hard drinking boys, lads from the country. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind
Right.
of like, I'm
Yeah.
from the country, but the things that I would relate with more would arguably be from, you know.
Yeah, you're a Funko Pop.
I'm a Funko Pop enthusiast. Yeah. No, I'm just a
Yeah,
Funko
like
Pop.
is like where does Galway rank on the kind of like, because I've heard of Galway, so I feel like it's not tiny, right?
Mm,
It is. I mean,
Okay.
Dublin's tiny,
yeah.
and it's the capital
Well,
city.
yes.
Yeah.
Galway has what? 250,000.
I could not tell you. Like, I mean, like, the thing about it is I've lived in Dublin then for 10 years, and now I'm back in Galway because of COVID, do you know? But like,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But like,
Yeah,
no,
do you have COVID in Canada?
yeah, you heard of this? the latest
Yeah,
thing.
you guys heard of this thing?
Sweeping the nation.
Or is it an
it's
Irish
crazy.
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know we have it. We have it here too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little different over there. It's kind of, whatever. I'm not going to go into
Yeah, it's into Crash Bandicoot. And,
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah. No, but just like, what am I even talking about? I guess it's just that, I guess there was something that I thought up with Canadian guy A, and then another person I was thinking about mentioning who's a person that I met here, who I won't name them, but they were somebody who was
Dox them. Where do they
dox
live?
them.
Where's
They
their
live.
address?
I have no idea where they are now, but you don't know them. I met them on a camp one time.
this
I
is
swear
just
they're
your
real.
this is just your friend.
No, it's somebody like, but they referred to themselves as North American when they were from Canada, and then they would put empty Tim Hortons cups as like decorations up on their like mantelpiece, along with the miniature
no.
Zamboni. And their parents actually flew them back to vote for Doug Ford, or was it whichever Ford was not killed by his own heart. But
Oh no.
yeah. So but there was this idea of like Canadian as an affect, and it kind of in response to something, but also being Irish as an affect in response to something, which I thought was interesting. But also it gets even more interesting when you think, hey, we're just making Trailer Park Boys, so we're just doing a Canadian thing, but we're pretending to be Irish in response to, oh, this is like the dumb yokel Irish that you guys like need to know about, I guess, or become synonymous with like Irish comedy, and especially stand-up comedy, because like it's quite pervasive. Like me and James still does comedy. I did it for a bit, and I no longer do stand-up. But
Yeah,
like,
they booed you off stage.
because I was they hated me too much. But
Yeah, you didn't choose. You didn't choose. The audience chose for you.
yeah. But no, well, it's not entirely far off the truth. But no, like the thing is, like, there's a like, again, to use the word lad stand-up stuff, where it's just like going up, hey, what you drinking, how's it going, all right, when you're from fucking such and such a place you do this, and when you're from this place you do that. And it's the one thing that, like, when I was doing stand-up, I kind of saw like, oh, there's interesting people trying things, and then eventually they would just get discouraged and retreat, but the thing that would stay the same is the fucking laughter lounge lad gang. And I just thought it was interesting because, and I know I'm not trying to get you to drag anybody, but like you were.
Yeah, who's the shittest comedian?
No, what I meant was I was watching like interviews, and I'm not. Anyway, I'm getting into dangerous territory, I feel. But I was watching interviews with you, and you were talking about how you got into comedy, and then people would kind of bring up that your uncle did stand up, and you just said at one point like, well, I don't do the same stuff, because you were like, are you influenced much by your uncle? And you're like, well, I don't really do the stuff that he does. Do you know what I mean? And I kind of was just thinking about, like, is there that divide as well in comedy over there, like the kind of boisterous lads drinking, smoking, fighting, you know what I mean, kind of thing.
Yeah. I would say Canadian drinking culture is a real thing, but it's certainly not as much a part of the fabric here as it is in Ireland, or at least I'm from what I know, and I'm guessing, but I assume that's true. So when I'm specifically speaking of my uncle, it's more just that he's like a one-liner comedian. So he's like very good at like short 30-second, like the longest joke he has is maybe like a minute, whereas like the longest joke I have is like 11 minutes. Like I'm more of a storyteller. So my uncle and I would say, are a little bit more similar. But the thing, what we get in Canada a lot, which is, at least as far as what you're describing as like lads comedy, is that Canada is so big. Like, it's so big. And so just landmass wise, obviously not population, but it's just such a big country that what you get a lot of is the like making fun of different parts of Canada, because everywhere is kind of different. So people in BC are a little bit more laid back, and Albertans are all about oil. Alberta's kind of like Canada's Texas, and then Quebec is French, and everyone in Toronto thinks they're the greatest, and the East Coast is all maritime crazy people. Like, so that's more of what it is. I think is like, it's very easy to fall into the trap of like, where we live, it's like this, but where other people live, it's like this, you know? And I think with Ireland being so small, you probably have some of that, but it's not as, you know, it's not as noticeable as Canada, where you have like the second largest landmass in the world that would take you like 8 days to drive from one end to the other. It's very easy to sit in Vancouver and be like, those fucking guys in Halifax, am I right? You know, and then people go, yeah, I've been to Halifax. So yeah, I would say it's more like that as opposed to the sort of like, you know, boisterous, over the top comedy versus, you know, your maybe more introspective, smart comedy, or however you want to put it.
But I want to clear that I was not like dragging your uncle into this. Like, I don't want you to lay into him, you know. No.
It's okay. No, I didn't feel like that at all.
Good.
No problem. Don't worry. Yeah. No, he's a fantastic comedian for sure. No offense taken.
Okay. I was going to ask as well then, like, now that you mentioned how big Canada is, I really wanted to talk about like
how big it is.
Can we go into nobody talks about that enough, you know?
It is crazy though, how big it is. Like, it is huge.
It's fucking big, guys. It's huge.
No, I meant, you know, like, I guess I was going to ask you about like comedy as a career path over there, because one of the things I read in an article, again, so much research done.
Yeah, you know everything.
I know everything about.
I know. I'm gonna say this is impressive. I like this.
Well, I just didn't, because like the way this podcast came about is you literally put out, "Hey, I want to promote my special," and I was like, "Well, I got a podcast that 10 people listen to, so if you want to come on," then it's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I was like, "Man, I really got to do some sort of research and double down." And,
yeah,
you don't. You definitely didn't have to, but I do appreciate it though. It's very nice that you took the time out. But yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm loving this. It's great to talk to you guys. So no worries. Don't even worry about it.
But no, because there is things about like I guess comedy is a career. Now, actually, another thing that we should say as well is that I don't know if this is the same with you, James, but in the mid to early 2000s, I guess RTE, which would be our national broadcaster, they commissioned Just for Laughs show, which I presume just comes from, oh, here are the Just for Laughs filmed segments of comedy, and then we send over a comedian, Ed Byrne, to kind of film little interviews, and then also he's touring there anyway, so why not, you know? So that was kind of my exposure to all of that stuff. And then I remember I heard you on Block Party recently talking about the subsidies, I guess, or the grants that you get from the Canadian government for Just for Laughs, for kind of quota and things of, I guess, Canadian performers that they then use to get bigger overseas performers to come in. And again, like, I'm sorry, it's a fucking spider web of research that I've done, but like, to bring it back to, I saw that you were signed for Yuck Yucks, or like as a comedian to like be there. And I guess it was just interesting to me because I stand up here in Ireland, like, I don't think that there is investment from the government insofar, like, there are things that get local stuff, like Kilkenny County Council gives money to the Kilkenny Cat Laughs Comedy Festival, but ultimately, like, comedy seems to just be like, hey, I got a pub, and somebody goes, can I have a comedy night? And you go, yeah, sure, why not?
It's either like no money goes into it or tourist money, really.
Yeah, exactly. And
but
I guess
over in Canada, it seems like there's actual state money goes into it.
Yeah, but also
yeah.
No.
No, that sounded.
No, yes. Well, so I don't. Gareth, were you gonna finish?
Well, I just meant that, like, I was asking about the idea of being a comedian in Canada. That it might be like possible that you get like signed to things and you get gigs and you get this kind of, like, there's a big enough country that you have like audiences and stuff like that. But
yeah. So yeah, there's obviously a few things going on here, but I think I can tackle them all. Like, so in Ireland, do you guys not have comedy clubs? Like, is there no like Jongleurs Dublin or whatever?
There's one comedy club called the Laughter Lounge, but I'd have no reason to go there.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So being signed with Yuck Yucks, I'll talk about that first. So that is really just a uniquely Canadian phenomenon. So basically, in the, I guess it was the late 70s, there was a guy here named Mark Breslin, as stand-up comedy was kind of starting to get going in the States, who recognized that Canada could use its own comedy club, didn't have one. So he built the first one in Toronto. And then it was a big success, and he just ended up like kind of franchising it across the country. So it's kind of similar to, I think the one in the UK is called Jongleurs, right? Am I saying that right? Yeah. So that like where there's like multiple locations and whatever. So it's the same with Yuck Yucks. I think there's right now there's 12 or 13 Yuck Yucks across Canada. So the thing with being signed with Yuck Yucks is really just, so when Mark Breslin started these comedy clubs, he wanted to like own the Canadian talent pool, essentially. So he was like, if you're a hockey player and you're signed to the Toronto Maple Leafs, you don't play for the Montreal Canadiens as well. So that was kind of his view, was like, I'm scouting this talent to play at my clubs. I don't want them to play at other clubs, which is sort of controversial because in the States, they have a lot of different comedy chains. There's the Improv, there's the Laugh Factory, there's House of Comedy. Like these are all businesses that have multiple locations across America, and they don't give a shit. They don't have any exclusivity thing. They don't care. They're just like, yeah, you can play any club at any time, whatever. We don't give a shit. Whereas in Canada, Breslin was like, no, I'm going to be the top guy in comedy. If you're going to sign with me, I'll get you work, but then you can't play other clubs. So so it's a little bit weird, but at the same time, they are the biggest game in town. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's tough because there aren't that many independent comedy clubs across the country, but there are lots of people who have done well in comedy without ever signing with Yuck Yucks. But then there's also lots of people who got their start at Yuck Yucks, like Norm Macdonald and Russell Peters and Jim Carrey. And so it's just one of those things. I made a decision early in my career. There were two comedy clubs in Vancouver. There was Yuck Yucks, and then there was an independent club called the Comedy Mix. And I was getting nowhere with the Comedy Mix, and Yuck Yucks offered to sign me. And I was pretty new into comedy. I'd only been in comedy for like 18 months, which is pretty, usually with Yuck Yucks, you got to be in it for a while before you get signed. But I had a good start to my career. So they offered to sign me, and that was like the quickest path to like touring and doing weekend gigs and stuff like that. So I took that opportunity, and I've been with them ever since. So I've been with them now for like 8 years and worked my way up to headlining. And because we also have it's a different comedy structure in Canada. So I know in the UK, and I don't know if it's the same in Ireland, it's typically you'll have three comedians all do 20 minutes each.
Very
right?
good there. Sorry. Just want to give that a proper shout out. So often people will be like, and in the UK, of course, I don't know what it's like for you guys. And you're just like, and you're like, do they know that it's not part of the UK? You know what I mean?
I know. I'm all about it, boys. I that was my big thing when I came on here. I was like, I was going to make sure that I didn't upset my Irish fans. But yeah, so I know, like I say, I don't know how it is in Ireland, but in the UK, the system is that you have three comedians. Everybody does the same amount of time. Everybody does 20 minutes, and that's the show. In Canada, the format that they follow is you'll still have three comedians, but you have an MC who does like 10, and then you have a middle act, we call it, does 20, and then a headliner that does 40 to 45. So becoming a headliner is like a big step. It's like a big thing to become a headliner. So you kind of work your way up to that sort of point. So I did all that with Yuck Yucks. I've been a headliner now for like 5 years, and it's fun, but it's definitely not for everybody. And then as far as like the state funding goes, it's really just, again, like I said, Canada is so protective of its culture because we're so close to the States, I think, is what really fucks it up. And it probably, I would imagine there are some similar things with Ireland relative to the UK as well, where Ireland really wants to protect its like national identity through culture. Like that's one of the most important ways of doing it. And so I'm sure there's similar things that happen in Ireland, but in Canada, particularly being so close to the States, I think that one thing that we really try to do is, or the government tries to put a lot of money into the arts and into culture so that we can continue to develop this like uniquely Canadian identity that doesn't feel so North American but feels like our own thing. And Just for Laughs is just the biggest comedy festival in the world, so it's pretty easy for the government to say, okay, if you can have a minimum of 30% Canadian performers on the festival, then we can give you X amount of dollars. Or I don't know what the percentage is or whatever, but it's definitely easier as a Canadian comedian to get onto Just for Laughs than it is being from any other country on earth. So yeah, so I think that's really what it comes down to, is it's just it's a thing we have where, and don't get me wrong, it's been cut a lot. Like the arts budget under the last conservative government, before we had Trudeau, it was a conservative government, and they cut a ton of arts funding. But yeah, it's just something that the country really focuses on, as far as I say, just kind of trying to promote Canadian culture, I guess.
And as a, because it says, well, that, between the podcast and between also now, and also being a high school teacher, or at least part-time, are you finding it difficult? Not difficult, well, I mean, COVID, obviously it's going to be hard, but you know what I mean? Like, do you make a career as a comedian, or is it like a conscious choice that, you're with a teacher as well? Or is it kind of like, no, I just need all this stuff because that's the only way I can kind of get this income together, essentially?
Yeah, again, it's just so hard. Like in Canada itself, if you want to stay in Canada, it's very hard to have a career as a comedian, because while we do have this arts funding, it's also, pardon me, it's quite low. Like, I mean, so we have the CBC, and you guys have the BBC, and it's like it's a state-funded broadcast, so the money is only so high. So like, even if you have a show on CBC, it's not like you're not a rich person. You're good. Like, you're probably making, if you're the star of a CBC show, you're probably making $500,000 to $1 million a year, which is good, but you're not, I mean, you're not rolling in cash, especially in Vancouver, where houses cost $1 million to start. So it's one of those things where being famous or being successful as just a comedian in Canada is very hard to do. Very hard. I mean, the number of comedians we have that could sell out like a theater tour across Canada is very low. Very low. I mean, I would say you're talking maybe 10, maybe. And that's generous. And that's not counting like Russell Peters or people who have gone to the States. Like, I'm just saying, like, people who are just famous or known in Canada as comedians that can sell out like a tour where you're playing like 1,000 cap theaters. The number's so low because it's just Canadians still consume so much American culture. So you're competing against all those people, right? And the way I always describe it is like Canada has so many good comedians. We're such a good nation of comedy, but the average person in Canada, let's say they spend $100 on stand-up comedy a year. The average person spends that $100 on one show to go see Kevin Hart or Jerry Seinfeld or Amy Schumer, or, it's like, because America is so close, right? So that's the thing that we have, is like, I would love to get to a place where people are spending $100 on stand-up comedy a year and they're going to see 5 $20 shows. I would weigh like $20 local shows. Like, if you go to Yuck Yucks on a weekend to see me headline a show, it's $20. And so it's like, I would love to get to a place where that's how people are spending their stand-up money. But unfortunately, we're so close to America and we're so inundated with American culture that it's one thing to be a Canadian comedian, but it's another thing to be truly successful at it. And if you are a known Canadian comedian, it's probably because you went to the States and you had success in America, and then you came back and got a bigger piece of the pie or whatever.
Yeah, like that's the kind of common story here, at least as far as I would say. Like, I'm creeping up on an hour, so I don't want to keep you too long, obviously. But
oh yeah, no problem.
There is like a comedian here. I'll say, anyway, basically the age-old story is you reach a certain level here, and you get your kind of sitcom and or whatever, and on our local broadcaster, and but like they don't trust you, it seems, to be able to make decisions about things, and
right,
and so there's a lot of kind of mandating from it, and then it doesn't have to be a sitcom. Could be anything.
Could be a cartoon that Garrett made.
Could be a cartoon. Could
that
be.
Gareth
Yeah.
was commissioned to draw.
No, I mean that way it wasn't actually that, but but it could be that. But no, but anyway, then what happens is somebody goes to the UK, and all of a sudden they get a bit of success there, and then it's like now when they return, all of a sudden now like, well, UK have kind of given you the go ahead, so now let's fucking
And that bit is not Gareth.
That bit is not me.
Or me.
So but it's in it's in waiting for an amazing talent. Let's just say I didn't want to name them,
Right.
but anyhow,
I mean it's very similar. Like, and sorry, I know I said you have the BBC and you don't. So I fucked up, even though I was trying to do the Irish
we weren't gonna
version.
say anything,
Yeah,
but like
we're not
My
he did it
apologies.
again,
My
Get
apologies.
ready
I
for the death
caught.
threat. It's coming.
I caught myself. I apologize.
That's great.
But you guys have a state funded broadcaster.
RTE,
though.
yeah.
RT?
RTE, yeah.
Okay,
it stands
gotcha.
for Radio Telefie Sharon. So
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's exactly what you're saying, right? So it's like Russell Peters is like a great example. So he's one of the top 10 highest grossing comedians on earth. But that's like exactly his story. Grows up in Toronto, gets signed with Yuck Yucks, hones his craft at Yuck Yucks, gets a US green card, gets a special. Now he can come back to Canada and play stadiums when he does shows, and that's really, there's no path to that in Canada. Like there's no, like we have, some of our more famous comedians are like Brent Butt is one. You may have heard of Corner Gas. That's like the Canadian show that so he was like this creator and star of that. And then there's also Jerry D, who had a show called Mr. D, which was about teaching. He used to be a teacher. So those are like two of the bigger guys that like they created their own show. They starred in their own show. Very successful. Like Corner Gas, I think, ran for 7 or 8 seasons. They turned it into an animated series. Mr. D, same thing. Not an animated series, but ran for like 7 seasons on CBC. I mean, if you're in America and you're the star of a sitcom and you're a comedian and that sitcom is successful enough to run for 7 years, you're going to be able to headline huge venues in the States. Whereas like in Canada, it's like, these guys are literally our biggest comedians, but they're getting nowhere near a stadium. They're getting nowhere. Like they might be able to do like, 1,000 cap theater or something like that. But it's the same kind of thing. I would assume. Exactly right. It's like people want to see, they want to cheer for Canadians, but they want them to be successful in America first before they get like fully on board.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, almost word for word.
Yeah, no, it's insane. I mean,
We're like brothers.
yeah, that's what we are in nations.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, it's probably similar where I think in America, they like that you're a Canadian. Like they think it's cool. They're like, oh, you're a little bit different. Like you're kind of the same, but you're a little bit different. And I imagine it's the same in the UK. It's like someone from Ireland goes to London and it's like this, it's like you're close enough to me, but you're different enough that I kind of like it. It's kind of cool.
But there's like a diaspora element to it as well, where like, there's like comedians like Dara O'Brien who managed to get like tons of Irish people there doing routines about like Catholicism and Protestantism, all this fucking bullshit.
Yeah, and then it's fucking race traders. Like,
well, whatever, I'm not gonna.
Like
he's all right. I think
like
he's
Dylan
funny.
Moore.
But no, that's what I was gonna say. Is, and so let's say you take your Dara O'Brien. All right, I don't know if you know him, but then you have somebody like Dylan Moran. I don't know if you're familiar with Dylan Moran.
I know Dylan quite well. Yes, I've seen him live a couple times.
Yeah. But he like. I thought you meant like, we're buds, man.
Oh no, we're not buds. We're not buds. No, I don't know him personally, but he is very funny.
He is very funny. But like, I was just thinking that some people who'd see Dylan Moran might be like, oh, he's an Irish guy because he's got an Irish accent. He comes over here. But if he was to perform in Ireland, people are like, who the fuck is that weirdo? Do you know what I mean? If he was starting off, So like, you have permission to be yourself over there in the way that you get the novelty of being Irish, except they don't know that you're actually not Irish. You know what I mean?
Not Irish.
What?
Is he not Irish?
Oh no, he's Irish. What I mean is like not Irish in the traditional sense. Like, let's say you pitched a show to RTE and they're like, no, this isn't Irish enough. It needs to be like Hardy Books. It needs to be hard drinking, hard swearing, and whatever. But if you went over like David O'Doherty going over to, England, they just presume that he's Irish because his name is David O'Doherty and he sounds the way he does. Incidentally, if you don't know David O'Doherty, you should definitely check him out, John. Yeah.
Okay, I don't.
I'm sending
so I will.
ambassador for David O'Doherty.
No, send him.
No,
send
that's
him my
good.
way.
Send him James's
Yeah, I
link.
mean, I think it is a part of the whole, and I think too, it's like a style thing, like you said. Like Dylan Moran is very much like a UK style comedian. So like he's like very wry observation, talks slow, very dry sense of humor, which like you're describing what Irish people tend to like out of their Irish comedians is a little bit more of a lad style.
Well, I think that's
comedy.
That's more projected on them by these kind of gatekeepers or tastemakers. You know, the people who are in those
Right.
positions say, "Oh, this is what we were talking about." This the idea. We met with this guy one time, and he was talking about how RTE sees the average person. He's like, "This is just this dumb guy who comes home, just turns on the TV, he's just having a beer. He doesn't want to think about things." And it's like, well, if that's where the point you're starting from, of course, like you're going to think that, yeah, we all like just talking about how much we drink and how much, all this. But no, yeah, exactly. Not to cut across.
Yeah, the difference between Ireland and Canada is that the Irish government hates its citizens.
Yes, no, that was it. That's exactly what you, because as you were saying, it's like, I'm sure there's protective of culture. It's like, no way,
They're
not at
fucking
all.
hate it.
No, like, they resent,
interesting.
like, yeah.
Or like, if they do, it's for tourism.
Yeah, totally.
But like,
Right.
in Canada, they actually seem to value Canadian, like, even to a smallest amount, they value Canadian talent.
Well, like I thought about, like when you think about something like Room, for example, because that was a Canadian and
Room?
Irish co-production.
Room.
Yeah, you know the movie Room,
Moon.
Brie Larson.
Room. Yeah, with Brie Larson. Anyway, the movie Room with Brie Larson.
You don't
What I
know
mean is
Moon.
like it's set in Canada, but like
in a room.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me? No, but like in like like in Ireland, like for example, if that were to be set in Ireland
In a room.
in a room, it would have to be like, I don't think that this looks enough like Ireland.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be in like,
A pot
You
of
know,
gold. It needs a pot of gold.
yeah, something like that. But something like that. But like with Canada, it's like, that could be like mistaken for America in that movie, but it's almost the assuredness of just like, I know it's Canada, so I don't need to add fucking, maple leaves and bells and whistles
Yeah.
on it, for you to know that this is a distinctly Canadian product.
Like,
you know?
imagine if every
Yeah.
show that got made in Canada was like your
Canadian
man,
guy, yeah.
or like no, it was like
Yeah.
Bubba from Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think the thing is, like, I see what you're saying, but I also think that it's kind of like a bit cynical though too, because I think Canadian shows do that on purpose because they want to seem American. Like, I think for a Canadian show, they're like, if we can get success in America as well, that's when we will have truly made it. Like, that's when that's when we'll become what we want to be. So I actually think, so yes, the Canadian government does fund a lot of like music and comedy and television and film, which is all great. And it's not as much as it should be, but it's, it's good, especially what it sounds like in comparison to Ireland. But I do think that is part of the reason, is like Canada would be like, okay, so it's in a room, but like the room is in Canada, but what if it was in America?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the thing that unfortunately does cloud a bit of Canadian media content. And I think, unfortunately, Canadian shows that seem very Canadian just never gain traction, aside from Letterkenny, which is like pretty proudly Canadian, I think. But like a lot of the ones like that I was talking about, like Corner Gas and Mr. D and stuff, they seem very they seem like they could be North American, and that's by design. Corner Gas is too Canadian, to like cross over. Whereas like Mr. D and other shows like that, Schitt's Creek, they're by design meant to be like just North American,
Schitt's
as
Creek.
opposed to.
We were literally talking about that 2 episodes ago, because there's
We didn't know it was Canadian.
we didn't know it was Canadian.
Well, there you go. Exactly. Well, it's a funny show too, because it's like, not only is it Canadian, it's like so Canadian. Like everyone on it is Canadian.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
actor is Canadian. All the crew is Canadian. The writers are Canadian. Like, it is Canada through and through. But yes, I mean, you associate Eugene Levy with America because he's been famous for like 30 years, and same with Catherine O'Hara. Like, I think, if you're in Ireland, you would have no reason to believe they were Canadian. So it's hard to like picture that. And yeah, like that's on purpose. Like, I think Schitt's Creek to a Canadian, it looks Canadian because the way that the small town looks and the way that the people interact with each other feels very small town Canada. So I think as a Canadian, you watch it and you go, yes, this is a Canadian show and I know that. But if you live in Ireland or Australia or anywhere like that where you would be viewing that show, you'd have no reason to believe it was in Canada.
But I wanted to ask about, like, we talked about live comedy and all the stuff that, you know, you do, and how, like, I guess COVID has impacted it. And one thing I wanted to bring up, just because I didn't know about it before, is like in, you know, at the height of like comedy specials in Ireland, it was like the goal of every kind of Irish person to have a fucking DVD. Do you know what I mean? And
right,
you know,
yeah.
despite David O'Doherty, which James pointed
and his
out,
name spells out DVD.
no, it doesn't. But he despite him, he recorded audio specials. But I don't think that there is a tradition as much of like audio specials here, or you know, in this part of the world, let's say.
But you have two.
You have to.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'll let you in on a little secret. The reason that I have two, and the reason that many Canadian comedians especially record audio specials, is because the royalty checks from Sirius XM are bananas.
Whoa. That's what I was going to ask you about. The idea, because I read it was like, oh, it played in rotation on Sirius XM, and I'd like heard about it because of like fucking, what's, you know, the Opie and Anthony guys and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
But like, I hadn't ever considered like I just associated with the black t-shirt wearing comedians who are all like trying to say the N-word or something, you know. I didn't expect.
I mean, that's Opie and Anthony.
Yeah.
That's different, but yeah.
But like, that's what when I heard that, you know, like your special would have been on rotation, and I was like, what? And people tune in and they'd be listening to like comedy specials, and it's like,
yeah,
interested in comedy. It sounded bizarre to me.
so the thing is, so the thing with Sirius XM, so I believe there are 6 comedy channels in total, I think, or maybe 5. And there's one that is in Canada. So there's one that's called Canada Laughs. It's produced in Toronto. It's the program director's Canadian. It's all a Canadian show. And they have to play 100% Canadian content on their channel. That's just the way it is. So the ones in the States, there's one called Laugh USA. There's one called Raw Dog Comedy, which is the one that my album was being previewed on. Jeff Foxworthy has a channel called The Foxhole.
Okay.
There's another one called The Bonfire. So yeah, I think there's like 5 total. But yeah, so the one in Canada has to play by Canadian law 100% Canadian content. So Canadian comedians about 5 or 6 years ago started realizing, or probably a little before that, 7 or 8 years ago, figured out that the royalty checks are insane. Like it's enough to make a living off of almost if you're a comedian. So they started producing albums, and so that is really. You know, I was talking earlier about how it is really hard to be like a headlining touring comedian in Canada because live, the money isn't there. This is like a way that good Canadian comedians can get paid.
Yeah, for sure. And so, when did you record this? Was it before all the virus stuff, or is it during? And you know,
the last week before it hit. Yeah, nice. It was nuts. I got so lucky. I recorded it on March 6th and 7th. And then the following weekend, Yuck Yucks was open on the 13th and 14th, but it was like half full. Like it was like, that was when people were starting to be like, ooh, this virus thing. Like, I don't know if I should be going to a comedy show. And then the weekend after that, the club was closed and it hasn't reopened since. So I may end up having the second last weekend ever at that club if it doesn't reopen. So,
oh my God. Like, yeah, it's like, you know, in the initial COVID stuff, it was like, God, are you telling me I can't go to the shops? This is a real inconvenience, you know? And then slowly but surely you're just like going, will anything I like ever open again? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You start to gradually accept, like, I will never go to a live show again. Will I ever go to a concert again?
Yeah.
Will I ever, you know, like, yeah, it's...
So when's the date? When's it out? And where can people get it?
It comes out on October 16th. It's called Long Stories for No Reason. And it'll be released wherever you get your music. So if you're Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, whatever, it'll be on there. So yeah, I think you'll be able to like pre-save it starting this Friday, the 9th, and then it comes out on the 16th.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Let me see. I'm back into my research list to see if there's anything I missed. The only thing I have here, and it's we were gone over, so it might be too much.
Yeah.
I just wrote Justin Trudeau and Leo Varadkar. Leo Varadkar is our Taoiseach, and he models himself off
Yeah.
of Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
And
Look, there's a really lame photo, and it's our Taoiseach and Justin Trudeau, and they're both wearing funny socks.
but like
that's their
Trudeau's
big
doing
thing.
his socks thing, and then Leo's like, "Look at my socks, though," and he's like pointing at them, and then Trudeau's like, "Yeah, who is this?" You know?
Yeah.
And
And I think it's even something like he's wearing C3PO ones, and our Taoiseach's wearing R2D2. So even in this moment,
Whoa.
Ireland is like just following Canada
yeah,
a little bit behind.
please like us,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, no, he's like, I actually refer to him as a Taoiseach. He's the Taoiseach, so
He was
he did
Taoiseach
it.
at the time.
he did it. Well, he was Taoiseach at the time, so you know.
That's like our Prime Minister.
Yeah, Taoiseach is like Prime Minister,
Okay.
and then Taoiseach is like Deputy Prime Minister, and
Okay.
they
yeah, when you said Taoiseach, that went right. I was like,
Yeah.
that went right over my head.
You were
I'm like,
like,
is
just,
that good?
just laugh
Yeah.
for this bit.
But anyway, that's
Yeah.
basically all I got. So really like thanks very much for
Yeah.
like coming on the podcast and talking. And
No, it was a blast. I appreciate you guys reaching out, and yeah, I'll come back anytime.
oh wow, cool, yeah. Well, I'll let you know. As in, like, if there's any big Canadian Guy A developments, it'll just be like urgent podcast needed.
There we go.
Although I will say, and I'm going to probably cut this out because I don't want to dox him, all right? But he's very public about his like social media and stuff. So he's talking about moving house and all this type of stuff. And then I don't know whether he changed his address or what happened on this thing, but it's revealed that he lives in. I am doxing him. No, so this is getting cut. But like he lives on the American side of Niagara Falls. So he's in Buffalo
What
technically.
He's not even Canadian.
But he
Oh,
is
really?
Canadian, but he has moved to Buffalo, New York.
Oh, God.
And I was really like,
Wow.
what a betrayal, you know? Is that doxing
Send him
him
over the falls.
Yeah.
No, that's not doxing him. That's fine.
Yeah. All right, maybe we'll keep
Buffalo's pretty big, so they're not.
Yeah.
If you go to Buffalo searching for Canadian Guy A, I don't think you're gonna find him.
Yeah. And if you do find him, like,
Kill
please tell him to come on the show.
Yeah.
He's like, I love you said kill him at the same time. And I mean, because
Yeah.
we're recording this on the single track, I can't edit that out. So yeah, if this gets taken down for any reason, then you'll know who to blame. Although we did start off the podcast by saying that one of our fans would kill John, so
So
just a-
someone's getting
True.
killed.
True.
someone's killed. I didn't start this
Yeah.
podcast to see no one get killed.
Yeah.
All right, let's just say that. But anyway, yeah, I won't keep you any longer, John. Thanks very much for coming on, and sure I'll keep an I don't know ear
Yeah.
out on all your other various ventures. I mean, I'm definitely going to be listening to podcasts, so I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah,